If you're just joining us, we've got some new breaking news out of the NFL, where the Bears are hiring Colts defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus ahead their new head coaching position. That being confirmed, our Jason La-Canfora is going to be his first ever head coaching job for the 51-year-old at any level, though having some success there in Indianapolis, trying to take that to Chicago with a franchise quarterback at hand. Came over to Indianapolis with Colts coach Frank Reich back in 2018. And during his time leading that defensive side of the ball, the Colts allowed 21 or fewer points in 31 of his 65 games. All right, let's welcome back senior NFL reporter Jonathan Jones. JJ, what more can you tell us on this front with Matt Eberflus going to Chicago and the fit there?
Yeah, defensive-minded head football coach of the Chicago Bears, Matt Eberflus, who, you remember, he came to Indianapolis and they were really, really bad on defense. And, of course, he was going to be there with Josh McDaniels. And then when he left the Colts at the altar, stuck around with Frank Reich, and that sort of marriage that wound up working out for a very successful 4 years with that defense that was always sort of buoying around the top 10, just outside of it, just inside of it. In those 4 years, of course, pretty bad taste in his mouth with how the season ended, with really everyone in Indianapolis, how the season ended there against the Jacksonville Jaguars. But one game does not define this man as a coach, as a defensive play caller. He heads to the Chicago Bears pairing with a first-time general manager, Ryan Poles. And so what's going to be next? Well, first of all, they're going to have to find an offensive coordinator, and they're going to probably need to find a veteran offensive coordinator. This is a staff that, with a first-time head coach, a first-time general manager, you want to get that experience in there. I hear all the time from coaches, from GMs who wish that they would have filled out their staff or their coaching roster with a little bit more experience when they start out young. So I would be on the lookout for that in Chicago. You got to figure out who's going to be in the ear of Justin Fields. He's the franchise quarterback. He is the future there. You have to get that right. But Eberflus takes over a defense, of course, that underachieved a little bit in the defensive backfield, got the sack production that they want. They have the names over there, if not a little bit of age, and now it is on Eberflus and Ryan Poles to figure out who the offensive coordinator for this team will be moving forward.
All right, back here from a quick break, CBS Sports HQ. Matt Eberflus getting his shot to be a head coach at the age of 51, but he's been around a long time as an assistant, I should say. Colts defensive coordinator since 2018 with Frank Reich, and he is now headed new head coach, new GM, hopefully new changes coming to the Chicago Bears. Back with me is Pete Prisco, our NFL analyst and senior writer here. Pete, what do you think about the higher surprising sum? Did it surprise you?
Well, it's surprising in that you have a young quarterback in Justin Fields and you hired a defensive coach. And so I think from that standpoint, it's a little surprising. But look at Sean McDermott in Buffalo. He's a defensive coach. He hired a good offensive coordinator, and look at the way they play offense. Same goes with Bill Belichick. He cut his teeth on playing great defense, and then he got Tom Brady, and he threw the ball around all the time. And so I don't think that's a hindrance to being a good offense or developing your quarterback. The key becomes, who does he hire as his offensive coordinator? And that will be the number one hire for that team. Because whoever it is, he has to develop Justin Fields. He has to make sure Justin Fields becomes a Pro Bowl type quarterback. And so if he doesn't, that's going to be on Matt Eberflus because ultimately it will decide how well his coaching career goes in Chicago.
And how does that typically go? Will he generally lean on maybe an offensive guy that he knows? Will he take the best candidate? In terms of trying to pair Justin Fields, how do you think that'll work out?
What was that, Tommy? I'm sorry, I had something in my ear.
That's all right. I'm asking you, generally in this type of situation, will he try to lean on a guy that he knows offensively, or will he take the best candidate possible to try to pair with Justin Fields?
Well, I think ideally you look at the best candidate, but sometimes familiarity is important. And so you look down his coaching tree and you try and figure out a guy who has had success as an offensive coordinator. He's worked with a lot of good ones over his career. So I think familiarity is important. You want to be comfortable with the guy, and you never want to be threatened by your hire. And this is an ego-based business, and a lot of times these coaches hire guys and they start throwing knives in each other's backs when things go wrong, and you can't have have that. So I would first and foremost hire somebody I'm familiar with, somebody I've worked with in the past, and somebody I know can develop the quarterback. And so you look down his coaching tree, and where's he go? Maybe it's the quarterback's coach when he was with the Cowboys, or maybe it's, I dare I say this, but Jason Garrett was with him in Dallas. Personally, I wouldn't do that, but I think there's options out there in his coaching tree to try and find the right guy for the job.
All right, Pete, certainly appreciate it. Been a busy morning. We appreciate you hopping on multiple times with the breaking news. Hey, look it is, the Pick Six Podcast once again. If you didn't know, host Will Brinson and the super friends Ryan Wilson and John Breach. Download and follow today.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.